The morning sun cast long shadows across Maple Street as Sarah adjusted her black blazer and checked her watch for the third time. The familiar weight of her laptop bag pressed against her shoulder, filled with contracts and presentations that would determine the future of her consulting firm. She had worked years to build her reputation, and today's meeting with the Henderson Group could secure her company's biggest client yet. Her daughter Emma sat cross-legged on the front porch steps, carefully arranging her collection of smooth river stones in perfect rows. The 8-year-old had found them during their last family camping trip, before work had consumed every weekend and late evening. Each stone held a memory that Sarah barely had time to acknowledge anymore. "Mom, look," Emma called softly, holding up a particularly round gray stone. "This one looks like the moon we saw that night when we made s'mores." Sarah paused, her hand on the car door handle. The memory flickered through her mind like sunlight through leaves. She remembered that evening, the crackling fire, Emma's delighted laughter as marshmallows stuck to her fingers, and how peaceful everything had felt under that full moon. It seemed like a lifetime ago. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," Sarah replied, though her voice carried the distraction of someone already mentally reviewing her presentation notes. "But we need to get going. School starts in 20 minutes. Emma carefully placed the moonstone in her small backpack, along with the others she had chosen for show and tell. She had been planning to tell her classmates about their camping adventures, about how her mom had taught her to identify different types of rocks and how they had counted 17 shooting stars together. But lately, it felt like those memories belonged to someone else's family. As they settled into the car, Sarah's phone buzzed with another email from her business partner. The Henderson Group had moved their meeting up by an hour. Her stomach tightened with familiar anxiety as she calculated drive times and parking situations. Everything had to be perfect today. The drive to Emma's school usually took 15 minutes through the quiet residential streets. Sarah had driven this route hundreds of times, past the old oak trees that Emma loved to name, past Mrs. Chen's garden where sunflowers grew tall as streetlights, past the little blue house where Emma always waved at the elderly man who sat on his porch reading newspapers. Today, however, the familiar route revealed an unexpected obstacle. Orange construction cones appeared like bright warnings across the main road, and a worker in a hard hat gestured for cars to turn around. The bridge over Miller Creek, their usual path to school, was closed for emergency repairs. "Detour ahead," the construction worker explained through Sarah's rolled-down window. "Bridge won't be safe until this afternoon. You'll need to take the long way around through Pine Ridge Road." Sarah felt her carefully planned morning crumble like autumn leaves. Pine Ridge Road would add at least 20 minutes to their drive, maybe more with morning traffic. Her presentation was scheduled to begin in less than 2 hours, and she still needed time to set up her materials and review her notes one final time. "Is there any other way?" she asked, hearing the stress creep into her voice despite her efforts to stay calm. The worker shook his head sympathetically. "Sorry, ma'am, this is the only safe route today." Emma watched her mother's reflection in the rearview mirror, noting the familiar line of worry that appeared between her eyebrows whenever work problems arose. She had seen that expression more and more lately, during phone calls that stretched past bedtime. And weekend mornings when her mom typed urgently on her laptop instead of making their traditional pancake breakfasts. As they began the longer journey through Pine Ridge Road, something unexpected happened. The detour led them through a part of town Sarah had forgotten existed. Rolling hills covered in morning mist stretched on both sides of the winding road. Old farmhouses sat peacefully among fields where horses grazed quietly, their breath visible in the cool air. Emma pressed her face against the window, her eyes wide with wonder. "Mom, look at all the horses," she whispered, as if speaking too loudly might disturb the peaceful scene. Despite her anxiety about the time, Sarah found herself slowing down. The road seemed to demand a gentler pace, and the beauty of the landscape began to work its quiet magic on her racing thoughts. She hadn't realized how much she had missed seeing the world beyond conference rooms and computer screens. They passed a small pond where ducks glided across water that reflected the sky like a mirror. Emma pointed excitedly at a great blue heron standing motionless at the water's edge, waiting patiently for the perfect moment to catch its breakfast. The bird's stillness seemed to echo through the car, creating a moment of shared silence between mother and daughter. "Remember when we saw herons like that at the lake?" Emma asked quietly. "You told me they were nature's patience teachers." Sarah did remember. She remembered explaining to Emma how herons could stand perfectly still for hours, waiting for exactly the right moment. She remembered feeling proud of her daughter's fascination with the natural world, and promising they would go bird watching more often. That promise had been made 6 months ago, before the Henderson Group opportunity had appeared and consumed her attention. As they continued through the scenic detour, Sarah realized something was shifting inside her chest. The tight knot of anxiety that had lived there for months was beginning to loosen. Her phone sat silent in her purse, and for the first time in weeks, she wasn't mentally rehearsing presentations or worrying about client deadlines. Emma began sharing stories about her rock collection, explaining the difference between sedimentary and igneous stones, knowledge she had gained during their camping trip. Her voice carried excitement and intelligence that reminded Sarah why she had fallen in love with motherhood in the first place. Her daughter's mind was curious and bright, full of questions about the world that deserved more than distracted half-answers. They arrived at Emma's school 15 minutes later than usual, but something had changed during that unexpected journey. As Emma gathered her backpack and prepared to leave for class, Sarah found herself really looking at her daughter for the first time in weeks. Emma's hair caught the morning light like spun gold, and her eyes held the same sense of wonder that had made their camping trip so magical. "Emma, wait," Sarah said suddenly. "Tell me more about your moonstone." Emma's face lit up with surprise and joy. She carefully removed the smooth gray stone from her backpack and placed it in her mother's palm. "It's not just round like the moon," she explained. "If you hold it up to the light, you can see tiny sparkles inside, just like the stars we counted that night." Sarah held the stone up to the car window, and sure enough, small flecks of mica caught the sunlight and glittered like distant stars. The memory of that perfect evening came flooding back with unexpected intensity. She remembered how proud Emma had been to find this particular stone, how carefully she had washed it in the creek, and how they had talked about wishes and dreams under that vast night sky. "You're absolutely right," Sarah said softly. "It's perfect for your presentation. Your classmates are going to love hearing about our adventures." Emma beamed and carefully returned the stone to her backpack. As she prepared to leave for school, she turned back to her mother with a hopeful expression. "Mom, do you think we could go camping again soon? I found a book about different types of minerals, and I want to see if we can find some new specimens." Sarah felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. Her daughter's enthusiasm was a gift she had been too busy to appreciate. The Henderson Group meeting suddenly seemed less important than this moment, less crucial than the relationship she had been neglecting in pursuit of professional success. "Yes," she said, and meant it completely. "Let's plan a trip for next weekend. We'll bring your mineral book and see what treasures we can discover together." Emma's smile could have powered the entire school building. She hugged her mother tightly before running toward the classroom, her backpack bouncing with each excited step. As Sarah drove away from the school, she realized that the construction detour had given her something more valuable than any business contract. It had reminded her of what truly mattered, of the person she wanted to be beyond her professional accomplishments. The winding road through Pine Ridge had been exactly the path she needed to take, even though it hadn't been the one she had planned. She arrived at her business meeting 20 minutes late, but with a calmness and confidence that surprised her colleagues. The Henderson Group presentation went well, but more importantly, Sarah had rediscovered her priorities. Success would mean nothing if she lost the wonder in her daughter's eyes, the trust in their relationship, and the joy they found in simple adventures together. That evening, as Emma arranged her rock collection on her bedroom shelf, Sarah sat beside her and really listened to every story, every detail, every excited plan for their upcoming camping trip. The moonstone sat in the place of honor, catching the lamplight and sparkling with promise.